And welcome to Habs Unfiltered, episode 411. I'm your host, Blain Putvein. I'm joined by both my co-hosts, Matt Smith
Afternoon.
and Trege Wilson.
Good day, good day.
So this is going to be a quickie episode. We're recording this on the Friday at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon Atlantic time. So the game against the Devils has happened. Uh, yep, it definitely happened. The Habs lost. I know it's a shocker, but they did lose the game. And we're going to talk about a little bit about that and some other items. So we'll just dive right in and we'll talk a little bit about the game. So, what was it in that game that you saw that you liked and you didn't like? And we'll start with you, Treg.
Liked?
Yeah. Is there anything? They scored 3 goals.
They did. Newhook's game was great. I thought Newhook had a great game. And Matt had said just today, that day on Twitter, that he had to come out with a big game. And he said he took that personal. So Newhook took your tweet personal. He
Thank
had
you.
a good game. I thought individually some players had good. I thought Slavkovsky had a good game, even though he didn't get any points. But as overall as a whole, it's the same story with the Habs. 5-on-5 is just a disaster, and I'm just not happy with. I mean, we went from having one line to having no lines with one move, really, and I don't understand. I mean, we're going to get into that probably later, but so what was bad? Like I said, 5-on-5, special team. The PK was good. PK's been still pretty solid. Power
Top 10 in
play
the league.
was power play was okay. Wasn't terrible. Didn't score, but only had 2 opportunities, I think, or something like that. So I didn't think Montembeault played all that bad. Um, yeah, it's the same old, same old. It's almost the same watching the same game every night. If we had hot goaltending, we're in the game. If we don't, we're not. And that's really the story of the Canadiens this year.
What about you, Matt? Good,
I'd have to
bad,
agree.
ugly?
I'd have to agree with the Newhart comment. I think that he really needed to get going. He's had some chances throughout the season, only had 2 goals going into this game. And yes, I did call him out on Twitter, and then he had a good game. So maybe I have to do this for a few more players down the line. Um, I liked what we saw from some of the guys that have been getting a lot of flack over the year or over the last few years, mainly guys like Josh Anderson and Brendan Gallagher, who I think have been two of their better players over the last few games, just in their effort levels. You saw in the Calgary game, Anderson, yes, he put himself offside that brought that goal back. That would have been Gallagher's second in the game, but Gallagher's second in the team, or second on the team right now in goals. No one probably would have predicted that going into the year. And then on the negative side, it's the defensive breakdowns. It's knowing when to pinch, when to go into the corner, when to cover the right guy, etc. And we're seeing it time and time again. And good teams they're gonna come back the other way. They're gonna put it in the net. And that's what happened tonight with New Jersey. So unless that changes, and I really do think that when they were talking about bringing in another defenseman, I think that conversation should get a little bit more heightened, knowing that Lane Hudson played 27 minutes last night, which is 5 minutes more than Matheson. And I know Matheson's been struggling, and he hasn't been managing the puck very well. But does that mean that you play a rookie defenseman an extra 5 minutes more and play him almost half the game? I don't know.
Well,
It seems like he can do it.
He
Like
can.
I
yeah.
understand what you're saying. So if he can do it, I don't see why not. What this shows to me is that maybe it's time for us to move on from Matheson. If you can lose Lane Hudson in his minutes and his time, I mean, I'm all for not putting Hudson into a position until he's ready, right? Which is why I always advocated to keep Matheson. But we're coming to a pinnacle in this rebuild where we got to start. Are we going with this guy? Or are we going with this guy? You know what I mean? Like,
I'd like
let's
to
do it.
see I'd like to see, like, if we're talking about his minutes and when he's being used, maybe it's time to throw him into PP1,
Well, that's just, and that's
right?
kind of
And
where I'm
have
getting at.
him, right, have him into
Yeah,
those minutes,
yeah,
and then maybe some of the other more defensive minutes, throw out Matheson,
yeah.
right?
And and,
Get
and I was
Yeah,
just gonna say
I'm
that's where I kind of going with that. Like,
yeah.
if this is the case, if you're gonna play him more than Matheson, then you put him on the power play one. You give him Matheson's minutes, and then you go, all right, Matheson, we need room to bring so-and-so up or other guys into the league. We can get something for you now. Let's move on.
See, we're at that point in the rebuild where I thought, okay, Matheson's going to be that stopgap measure. He's going to play a lot of those minutes, and we're going to ease Hudson in a little bit. But now we're looking at Hudson, as you mentioned, outplaying him basically and getting more minutes. And this is part of the good and the bad. It's good that he is seen as capable, but it's bad that he's playing that many minutes because he's going to be overextended. That's why you'd want Matheson to cover more of those minutes. So I 100% agree with you guys. Give Hudson the easier minutes, in air quotes, where they're sending him to power play one, and he's got more of those minutes there. And you take that away from Matheson and you give him those 5-on-5, a little bit more of those minutes to make it a little simpler on the rookie who has less than 15 games played in the NHL versus Matheson, who's got 10 years in the league. And then at the end of the season, yeah, you're about ready to move on from him. So to me, that's kind of the good and the bad from the game yesterday, kind of highlights that issue. And I agree, the bigger issue, the real bad issue is the defensive structure of the team. Now, the Siegenthaler goal, where it was a 3-on-1, yeah, Savard got tripped. It should have been called, but it wasn't. Part of the bad is that the Canadiens are not good enough to overcome those minor difficulties, because this happens to every team.
My
The
issue
good
was
teams can overcome it.
Hudson actually did a very good job at breaking
Oh,
up
he came
that
back.
play. But
yeah.
then, so he disrupted that 3-on-1, and after the disruption was made, it was like, okay, now what do we do?
Exactly.
And everyone
That's
went
where the
chasing, and
structure
it led
fell
to the
apart.
goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the issue right now with Montreal. It's not the defense or the defensemen that are having a lot of the issues. It's the entire team defense.
Right.
It's almost like the forwards don't know where to go or what to do when they get into the zone. No, the defensemen don't know who they're covering and who they're not covering because they don't know who the forwards are covering. And it's like we mentioned it before on the show, a zone defense to a man-on-man defense. Now, I've seen a quote today from Marty St. Louis saying, I want these guys to work on this. We're going to work on this. We're not going to go back to our old defensive way that we did last year because I need these guys. It's not working, Marty. You know what I mean? Like, we're 14 games into the season and it's not working. Like,
Yeah.
when do you say, okay, these guys aren't getting this? What are we going to do to win? Like, I know Marty, again, another quote from Marty and a couple nights ago, we're not worried about winning right now.
Well, no, he's talking more about making sure the structure's there. And I wrote about this defensive structure for the hockey writers about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, where the players had to start to try and adjust to the system being put in place. But I put a time limit on that. At what point do you say that enough's enough? And I think we're pretty much there, because it really does seem like while the structure that he is trying to build is effective, it's only effective if you have the right horses pulling that carriage.
Correct.
And they don't have that right now. They're too inexperienced, or they're not quite the right fit for it. Whatever it is, you need to dumb down your system so that the players you have on hand can perform.
I think Montreal's biggest issue, and I think this is why Evans is on the second line, is they don't have enough defensive offensemen in the top six. Like, Suzuki isn't what he was. For some reason, Suzuki's not as good defensively this year as he was last year. I don't know what it is. He's having a hard time this year. I don't like. I mean, we can get into what we don't like about the coaching and that now if you want. I don't really know where you want to go this, but I really don't like what Marty's doing with the lines. You had at least one line that you knew was going to be a constant threat on the ice, and now you don't have any.
Yeah.
Like, like Doc is not ready. So Doc to me right now is the Caulfield of last year. He just came back from major knee surgery. He had a whole year off his hockey. He's not going to be good to go till like Christmas. He's not going to be 100% till I'll say around Christmas time or just after Christmas. It's just like Caulfield last year with his shoulder. So why are we putting him up on that top line? And if he's going to be our second line center, why are we wasting his minutes on that top line as a winger? If that's where you're going, because if you're not going with Doc, now we have a major hole. We have a huge freaking hole at center still, because we've had this now for 20 years at center for the Montreal Canadiens. Beck is going to be a good center, but is Beck a top six center? I don't think so. Beck's more like a
I think
third line center to me.
high end he could be, but I don't think he's going to be. He's more like a Chandler Stevenson. He's going to
Yeah.
put up like 45, 50 points.
I
and
can
he
see
be
him being a
defensively.
very strong 3. I can see him being
Yeah.
like a Jordan Stahl type guy, right?
But
And
doable as
then
a second, sure.
yeah, and then we have Dvorak, who for some reason he thinks is the greatest face-off guy on the planet because he puts him in for every important face-off. Like, guy only has a 45% win rate. Like, he's not winning the battles. He's
Hey,
no
be nice
better.
to him. He was
He's
at
no
30
better.
last time.
He's no better than anybody else. Everyone is around the 45 and 48% win mark. So does it matter which center you put in there? They're winning the same amount of face-offs. So, like in overtime against Calgary, I get why they were putting Dvorak, because they hope they want him to win the draw. And then he wins the draw, he gets off the ice, and Caulfield or someone comes on. The problem was he lost the draw, and then Suzuki got overtaken, lost his stick, and 7 seconds later, the game is over.
So I looked at the stats after that game. Obviously, I was there, but and swearing.
That's why they
But
lost.
right,
Now we know why they lost.
right, but when I looked at the game stats afterwards, he was 14-4 in draws. Like
Sure.
I can see why they put him out in that situation, and we've seen it before. They've put Evans out there, they put Dvorak out there, they put someone in the win the face-off so they can get the offensive possession. As soon as they do, guys swap out, they go up the ice. We've seen it work. However,
But we've also seen it not work.
Yes, but I do agree that because of the lack of depth at center, that is a tactic that they have to go to more often than not.
Yeah. He's got what he's got, and he has to use what he has on hand.
That's right.
And
it's the same thing as the comment that you made with Kirby Doc being up on the top line and wasting those minutes. And if you're looking for developmental time and you want this guy to be a center, why not play him at center? If the whole team's going through this rough patch right now, trying to find their identity or trying to find where they're supposed to play or trying to find the lines that work, why not say, okay, we're putting you through the mud? Like this is the way it's going to happen. If you think that you're a center at the NHL level, you're going to play a center at the NHL level, win or loss.
And that's what I'm saying about Marty's quote that he said I read this morning about, this is what we're going to play. They're going to have to learn this situation. This is what's going to work in the future. This is what we want you to learn. Well, if that's the case, then put the players where you need the players to be, where you want the players to be, where you want them to be in the future. Because if you're Kirby Doc, your second line center playing left wing on the top lines, now you're not only hurting Kirby Doc on the top line, you're hurting Slafkovsky, because now he's playing with two guys that don't really sync with him.
Well, he famously said when people started freaking out when Doc went up there for the first time, St. Louis famously said that he's gonna get back up there eventually. Slav's gonna be back on the top line eventually, and he did for a short period of time, which was really, I think it was the second period of that game or third period of that game because it was one of those blowouts. But I do believe throw Slav on the top line. Like you've got all these guys signed to big contracts. They're all supposed to be in the mix together. They were one of the better lines in hockey the last part of last year when they had nothing to play for. These guys are the guys that you've signed long term. Like these guys are part of that long term solution. Let's see what you got with them. Now that maybe you got Newhook going a little bit more, then maybe you take one of those guys that's given a little bit more effort on the bottom six, whether it's Anderson, Gallagher, etc., to give a guy like Doc a kick in the ass on the second line. Because as of right now, he's not skating yet. It's not like he's the guy jumping in, bringing the cape, and running into the game.
So part of this, like you mentioned earlier there, Treg, that St. Louis looking at this as, we're not looking for the wins. They're more looking at the process, right?
Right.
And you guys you're hitting the nail on the head when it comes to You got to put these guys in places where they're going to succeed now and build up that process. But at the same time, this team is in progression, and you're going to want some of these players to get different uh, challenges. So with Slafkovsky being on a line where he's the one that's leading the line to see if he can do it. Right now, it doesn't look that good, but in the last few games, he has improved steadily. He's creating chances. He's generating opportunities. It's not being scored on. The guys aren't uh, scoring on these chances that are being generated, but he is making them happen. Is slowly getting better. But I agree. At some point, Doc has to go back to center to let him be a center. Slafkovsky has to go back to a line where players can take advantage of the opportunities he provides by being that puck retention player, that puck attacking forechecker, power forward type. And at some point, this team is going to have to start turning a corner. Now, I know that the beginning of the season's been shit. I mean, they've lost a lot of games to start it off. But come Christmas time, I think we're going to see a team that's going to start coming back a lot better. And they're going to have players coming back from injury. The team will improve. They will not be in that mix that they were hoping for. And that's when you're going to start looking at that trade deadline where Dvorak will be traded for a bag of pucks or something, or, you're going to start moving guys. And the big issue is, what are you going to do with Savard? Because right now they're looking to try and trade for a veteran right-handed defenseman who can play defense and kill penalties. Well, what the fuck do you think Savard is?
Right.
Do you trade him or do you keep him?
But Savard's going to be that key piece at the trade deadline that might get you a first round draft pick.
And that's the thing. What's the cost that strips the value of having him on the roster? And I think it is a first round pick.
Because they have two already. A third one would be a huge bonus. Now we all thought they were going to, yeah. And this this is a center deep draft, so they can get their center if they keep playing their way they're playing. It's another top 5 pick this year, although, and hopefully Calgary drops to 11th and they can be at the 5th and the 11th, in the top 5 with an 11th pick.
I'm guessing between 15 and 20 for the Calgary pick,
which is still going to be Montreal's draft pick. And then if whatever they can get in the 20s or whatever it is for Savard, and maybe they might get something good for Evans. There's a lot of talk out there about teams. Evans has been the lead on that penalty kill that's now in the top 10. Now, whether it's a first round draft pick, I really don't think you're going to get a first round draft pick for Jake Evans. But if you can get a second round draft pick or a B level, A- level prospect, or maybe that prospect that just isn't working out on that team and needs a new, you never know. But then they still got Armia, who I thought would have a better year after his year last year. The fact that it's a contract year for him. You got Dvorak. Armia and Dvorak, maybe you don't trade them. Maybe no one wants them. Like it's that. But I don't know where Montreal is right now. Like I don't want to say they don't have an identity. Their identity is we're rebuilding. That's their identity. And I just don't know. I don't want to put the blame on the coaches or the players or but there's a lot of things I'm questioning with Martin St. Louis this year. There's a lot of things I'm questioning.
We're not seeing forward progression.
Correct. We're seeing sideways progression, if any. We're seeing progression from some players.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people saying Guy's having a down year. I don't think he's having a down year. I think he's almost a point per game player. He's actually at a higher pace than he was last year.
But look at the team. There's no difference from last year. They have Lane Hudson. They brought Lane Hudson in, and yes, Lane Hudson's been offensively, he's looked good. Right? They got Kirby Dach back, which they had last year for 4 periods. He has struggled through the majority of the time that he's played. And, when he's at minus 13, a lot of people are don't like plus minus and everything, but the stats there. He's a minus 13, and he's not playing in the position that they brought him into play. Other than that, it's the same team they have, and then they've got Patrick Laine waiting to join the lineup when he comes back from his injury. and
But
they,
he,
and they, and they don't have Jake Allen, right? So that's the team from last year.
but I mean, Gallagher's playing better. So
Yes.
you can almost swap Gallagher with Doc. You can sit there
Yeah.
and say Gallagher was what we thought Doc was going to be. Um, to me, I don't think the defense is that bad. Defensemen themselves, I think Goulie's having a strong year. I think Savard, I think always plays a strong defensive game, so he's doing
It's
okay.
team defense. It's team defense.
It's team defense, and I mean Hudson's learning. Um, Jack Eye's been up and down this season. Like you don't know which Jack Eye you're going to get per game. Like, are we going to get
Although
the
he's looked pretty
exciting?
good the last couple.
He
He's looked
has
pretty
the
since
last
he's been
few.
bent.
The last few.
Since he was
Yes.
benched by Marty, he's looked really well. Struble again, very inconsistent. I find
But when
Struble's
he's
been very
good, he's
inconsistent.
good.
When he's
When
on,
he's
he's on.
good, he's
Yeah.
on. He's on. When he's off, he's off. So I think should we have gotten rid of Kovacevic when we did?
Yeah.
There's
Look,
the question.
the answer is yes. They got a decent return for a guy who's a number 6-7 guy. Yeah, he's having a great start to the year in New Jersey because he's put in the proper role with proper support. But in Montreal, he would be completely ignored again. The only reason that anyone is saying that crap is because he scored a couple of nice goals.
I'm not saying that because I'm saying that because he was the most consistent defenseman for the past 2 years for the Montreal Canadiens, and he
True, but
would have
at some
gave a
point they had
little
to
bit of
open it up.
But how do we
correct.
know? But how do we know that they didn't offer him Barron or Harris or something, and they said, "Well, how about this guy?" Because
Right.
maybe the other guys that were looking that they wanted to move weren't getting the value.
Because I'm looking at because right now you could have moved a guy, but it didn't have to be a right-handed defense when we're already
Nope,
short on
didn't
right-handed
have to.
defense.
Right.
But they moved one of each. So,
Yep.
Mm.
you know,
I
I
don't
think the
know. I
bigger hit
just
was losing Harris.
well, Harris didn't make Columbus, so I don't know if that was a big hit or not.
But to the Canadiens roster, I felt
Yeah.
that Harris was a little bit better than Kovacevic when they were on the team. Um, and yeah, having a right-handed veteran would help right now because when you look at the lineup, how many defensemen on the Canadiens roster right now have more than 100 games played? Two.
It's Savard and Matheson. Oh
And I
no,
think Jack
Jack
Eye,
Eye does.
Jack
Jack Eye
does too.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he's got 103 or some shit like that.
Yeah, he just hit 100 like a couple days ago. Same night
So
someone hit 800. Who hit 800 there not too long ago? Matheson? Anyway, it was the same night.
something like that.
Savard. I think Savard hit 800 and he hit 100 on the same night.
But players don't really know what they are at the NHL level until they get to about 200 games. So this team is woefully inadequate when it comes to experience. And I think that's the biggest issue.
But I mean, I'm patient. I know it's a rebuild. I'm okay. We finish in the bottom five. Okay, we finish in the bottom. I don't care. We got Demidov coming in next year. We got, we can start. We have money coming in, so we can start bringing in those semi-veteran 25 to 28-year-old veterans that have a pedigree in the NHL that can spark the offense or defense. We got Jacob Dobish and Jacob Fowler who are on the right trajectory to become an NHL goaltenders. So I'm not that worried. Now, next year and the year after, if we're still in the same boat, that's when we start looking like the Ottawa Senators and going, when is this going to end? You know what I mean?
But Primo's going to be gone next year. They'll bring in probably another veteran goaltender to help with Montembeault, which will improve the goaltending. The defense are going to have a little bit more experience. They'll probably make a trade for another defenseman somewhere. Line A will be on the roster somehow for at least half a season. Joshua Roy, who's going to be, they left him in the minors for now, and it's looking like a good idea to leave him there because he's on pace for like 50 or 60 goals. Then you, like you said, Demidov, Hagee might be in the mix, probably not, but might be. You got another top 10 pick, possibly two top 15 picks.
You got Owen Beck is probably going to be in the mix to making the team, especially if Dvorak and Evans are gone. But that brings me up to another point. A lot of people are like, "Oh, why did they bring up Condotta? Why did they bring up Condotta when Waugh and them?" They brought him up because they want Waugh, they want Beck, they want these young guys to have a full season of success at one league. They don't want them jumping up and down. You know what I mean? And
they also
not
needed size and grit. on that
They
roster.
also and they needed a center, and I don't think they're ready to bring Owen back up into the NHL right now.
No.
So that's why they got Kandada. I have no issue with that. I have no issue with Joshua Waugh staying in the AHL. Him and Logan Mailloux are going to prove you either have to put us on the NHL team and have us learn at the NHL level, because there's nothing left for us here, especially Mailloux. Mailloux just needs to work on his defensive game at Laval. Once that starts improving, then he's going to be in the NHL ASAP, because he is dominating he's dominating the AHL, like dominating it. So,
yeah, he's got like 4 games played and he's already in the top 10 in scoring.
Yeah.
So as a defense, so yeah, I agree with you on that point. That I honestly think those 2 guys are going to be NHL players next year full time, which means
for sure.
more money that they can put into other areas because they're going to be on low level contracts. But the point remains that they are in a rebuild, and anybody who wanted the rebuild to happen, they said, play the young guys, play the young guys. Well, welcome to playing the young guys. It's not all going to be friggin' bells and whistles and roses.
And it's going to be younger after the trade deadline. So
100%.
Yeah. So
we only got a few more minutes left. So Matt, bring us in. What is there any other points you want to bring up about the game and what it shows us about the team?
Again, just lack of experience, and they need to just pull it together. Like this is the team that they have. They don't have anyone, like no one. There's no one coming to save the day right now. Like these are the guys on paper that they've got on the roster. These are the guys that they're paying. The top line needs to be better. I hope they put Slafkovsky back on that top line. And hopefully we can find a little bit more consistency with this team. A lot of people right now are talking structure. They're talking coaching. I don't think there's going to be a coaching change. I don't think they're going to bring in a veteran coach to even be behind the bench. Like, yes, it's nice that they brought in his old coach. He's not behind the bench though. He's not making the decisions when, the small tweaks to the game that need to be when, push comes to shove, and maybe a veteran voice could be the voice of reason. We're not seeing that, and I don't think that's going to happen either, unfortunately. But we'll see. We'll see what happens on the weekend. We'll see what happens in Toronto. Toronto's going to be butthurt about losing that first game, and 48 games, 48 save shutout in the first game. They're probably going to come out flying, and then they've got
Underpants.
then they've got a noon game. Then they get a noon game against Buffalo on the 11th, right? So
yeah,
we'll see how it goes. But I'm trying to stay as positive as I can with this team. But again, patience. We've said this multiple times throughout the show, and that's what we got to preach.
Treg, what about you? Final thought on this?
Yeah, just what Matt. Patience. Just be patient with the team. It's a young team. We're going to have growing pains. Yes, we thought we'd take a little step forward. They wanted to be in the mix, but it just doesn't look like it's going to go that way. We're going to be a bottom 5, bottom 10 team, and unless when Line A gets back, something miraculous happens, and you never know. They could be like Laval from last year. Laval had a shitty start, but then really turned it around the second half of the season, and their issue was defense. With team defense, and they changed it around and almost made the playoffs. I don't see Montreal doing that, but just be patient and just enjoy the season for what it is.
Another step in the rebuild. I agree. I like the structure that Laval has right now. I've been covering Laval for the Sick Podcast News Network. Check them out. We're starting to build that up. But yeah, I've been watching Laval, and their defensive structure is on point. It's what you'd want the Canadiens to have. And that's possibly because they have a head coach who's got about 20 years of experience. And that's fine. St. Louis is going to do what he does, and he's learning. And I think he is going to be a very good coach, and he's a decent one already, especially for individual players, which is the stage that the Canadiens are at right now, is what they need. But overall, yeah, it's going to be an interesting season. As long as they finish above where they finished last year, it's a progress. And that's all we want to see. We want to see the players progress a little bit too. So that's it for this episode. As we record, it is the 8th of November, and this is the Remembrance Day weekend. And as we are all three members of the Canadian Armed Forces, we'd like to remind you all to, put on a poppy. It's not necessary, but it'd be nice if you do. Um, if or go to a Remembrance Day ceremony on Monday. If you can't, then maybe do something at home. Take 2 minutes out of your day on Monday and reflect on what previous military members have had to do and sacrifice for us to do what we do now. And it's not just people passing away, sacrificing that. It's time. Like we've all, between the three of us, I think we've spent probably what, 20 years away from home,
Yeah.
which means our families have to deal with everything when we're gone. So that's a sacrifice. So again, I think that does it for the show. I want to thank everyone for listening, for tuning in. Be sure to check out all the work that Trege is doing on the Hockey Writers, that I've been putting out for Hockey Writers and Sick, and as well, watch for some draft magazines coming out. We're going to have some work on that. And everyone give Matt a big round of applause for being the prettiest guy in the show and in the Air Force.
Thank you.
Yay. Anyway, yeah, so just thank you all for listening. And remember, if you're talking about it, so are we.